In the soft, dim light of a fading afternoon, we begin our journey into the heart of the American Gilded Age, a time when the horizon was defined by the rising silhouettes of grand hotels that looked more like European palaces than simple lodges for travelers. As you settle into your blankets, imagine the heavy, carved oak doors of a mountain resort opening to reveal a lobby bathed in the warm, amber glow of thousand-light chandeliers, where the air is thick with the scent of aged cedar and expensive beeswax polish. The late 19th century was an era of breathless ambition and unparalleled opulence, a period where the industrial titans built monuments to their success in the form of these sprawling architectural wonders that stretched across the rugged landscapes of Colorado, the mist-covered cliffs of New England, and the sun-drenched coastlines of California. You can hear the faint, rhythmic ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner, its pendulum swinging with a steady, hypnotic motion that seems to slow the very passage of time as you lean back into the plush velvet of a high-backed chair. Outside, the world is quiet, muffled by a thick blanket of snow or the gentle sighing of the wind through ancient pines. But inside, the atmosphere is heavy with the weight of 1,000 untold stories. Each floor is lined with thick, crimson carpets that swallow the sound of every footstep, creating a silence so profound it feels like a physical presence against your skin. The architecture of these buildings was designed to overwhelm the senses, with soaring ceilings decorated in gold leaf and intricate moldings that depict scenes of myths and legends long forgotten by the modern world. As you close your eyes, you can almost see the flicker of gas lamps against the dark with paneling, their light dancing like tiny, silent spirits in the periphery of your vision. It was in these very hallways that the legend began to take root, not in the shadows of fear, but in the lingering energy of the thousands of lives that passed through these rooms, leaving behind a faint, shimmering echo of their laughter, their whispers, and their dreams. The Gilded Age was a time of intense emotion and grand gestures, and it is said that the very stones and timbers of these hotels absorbed that intensity, holding on to it like a secret kept for a century. Think of the way a room feels when it has been empty for a long time. The air still and cool, expectant as if waiting for a guest who checked out decades ago to return for a forgotten suitcase. You are safe in this silence, wrapped in the history of a time when elegance was the only currency that mattered, and the hustle of the outside world was left at the iron gates of the driveway. The wind outside continues its low, melodic hum, a lullaby of the high plains or the Atlantic shore, pulling you deeper into a state of total relaxation, where the boundaries between the past and the present begin to blur in the most peaceful way. Each room in these grand hotels has its own character, its own soft heartbeat. From the sun-drenched solariums where socialites once sipped tea to quiet, dusty libraries filled with leather-bound books that haven't been opened in 80 years. You can smell the faint, comforting aroma of old paper and dried lavender, a scent that speaks of continuity and the quiet endurance of the past. As the evening deepens, the shadows in the hotel corridors grow long and soft, stretching across the polished marble floors like cooling ink. There is no urgency here, only the slow, deliberate pace of a bygone century where every meal was a ceremony and every night was an invitation to dream. The legends of these places are like the softest of whispers, a rustle of silk in an empty ballroom, or the distant, muffled sound of a piano being played in a parlor 3 floors away. Sounds that don't startle, but rather act as a bridge to a world that was more deliberate and calm. You are drifting now, floating on the steady current of this history, feeling the immense weight of the building around you as a protective shell, a fortress of luxury designed to keep the chaos of the world at bay. The foundation of these hotels was built on the hopes of an expanding nation, and that sense of possibility still lingers in the drafty corridors and the high, arched windows that look out onto the stars. The stars tonight are bright and cold, watching over the silent turrets and the sprawling porches where rocking chairs move slightly in the breeze, even when no one is sitting in them. It is a gentle movement, a rhythmic creak that blends perfectly with the sound of your own breathing, guiding you toward a deep and restorative sleep. The Gilded Age may have passed, but its grand hotels remain as silent sentinels, keepers of quiet, opulent peace that now surround you entirely, pressing softly against your eyelids and pulling you into the softest of shadows where only rest remains. Moving deeper into the heart of the grand estate, we find ourselves walking along the expansive gallery, where the portraits of the elite still hang in heavy, gilded frames, their painted eyes watching over the silent corridors as the moon climbs higher over the rugged American landscape. Imagine the soft rustle of expensive silk and the rhythmic clicking of polished heels against the marble as the ghosts of high society continue their eternal promenade to the halls of the great hotels. This was a world of the Vanderbilts, the Astors, and the nameless titans of industry who brought with them an intensity of life that seemed to soak into the very wallpaper and floorboards of these massive structures. As you lie there, feel the weight of your own body sinking into the mattress, much like the heavy velvet curtains that hang from the ceiling to the floor, blocking out the modern world and leaving only the quiet pulse of the past. The air in these upper suites is cool and still, carrying the faint, ghostly scent of expensive French perfume and the lingering smoke of a long-extinguished cigar. In the late hours of the night, when the grand ballrooms were filled with the soft glow of gaslight, the stakes of politics and romance were higher than anyone could imagine, creating a psychic weight that some call emotional residue. It is a feeling of a secret whisper behind a hand-carved screen, the tension of a business deal worth millions concluded with a silent nod, and a heartbreaking sigh of a lover waiting by a window for a carriage that never arrived. These emotions do not simply vanish. They settle like dust in the corners of the ornate molding, waiting for the world to grow quiet enough for them to be felt once again. You can hear the distant, muffled sound of a silver spoon hitting a porcelain cup, a repetitive and soothing noise that echoes from a kitchen far below, reminding you that this building is alive with the memories of service and ceremony. The walls here are thick, built with stone and heartwood, designed to contain the dramas of the powerful and the privileged, acting as a sanctuary where the high-pressure world of the city could be forgotten in favor of the slow, deliberate pace of the countryside. As you drift further into relaxation, imagine the long, dimly lit hallways stretching out before you, the doors of private suites closed tight, each one holding a century of quiet breaths and whispered dreams. There is a specific kind of silence that exists in a place where so much history has unfolded, a silence that is heavy and comforting, like a thick wool blanket on a winter night. The politics of the old world were conducted in these very rooms, where men in formal attire spoke in low tones about the future of the nation, their voices blending into a low hum that sounds remarkably like the wind moving through the eaves of the hotel tonight. The romance of the era was equally intense, filled with grand gestures and tragic partings that left a lingering sweetness in the air, a sense of longing that manifests as a gentle breeze in a room with no open windows. You are part of this continuity now, a quiet observer in a world that never truly sleeps, but only rests in a state of perpetual elegance. The shadows on the ceiling dance slowly as the clouds move across the moon, creating patterns that look like the lace of a Victorian gown or the intricate scrollwork of a sterling silver mirror. Every object in this room has been touched by the hands of the elite, from the heavy brass key on the nightstand to the delicate crystal carafe by the bed, and each one carries a spark of that old-world energy, a calming and steady vibration that guides you toward a deeper state of peace. Think of the millions of footsteps that have worn a slight path into the stone steps of the grand staircase, a testament to the cycles of arrival and departure that define the life of a great hotel. You are currently in the stage of arrival, arriving at the shores of sleep, where the stories of the past become the dreams of the present. The high-stakes world of the Gilded Age was a whirlwind of activity. But here, in the stillness of the midnight hour, all that remains is a residue of their presence, a soft and shimmering aura that coats the furniture and softens the edges of the room. It is a protective layer of history, a reminder that you are surrounded by the enduring strength of the past, allowing you to let go of any lingering thoughts or worries. The grandfather clock in the foyer strikes the hour, but the sound is so deep and resonant that it feels more like a vibration in the floor than a noise in the ear, a steady heartbeat that synchronizes with your own slow and steady pulse. The elite guests have long since departed, yet their elegance remains, providing a backdrop of sophisticated calm for your journey into the night. You can almost feel the presence of a silent valet or a spectral maid moving through the room, straightening a picture frame or tucking in a loose corner of the quilt, their service continuing long after the guests have gone. This is a place where everything is taken care of, where the burdens of the day are lifted by the sheer weight of the history that surrounds you. The emotional residue of these grand hotels is not a thing of fear, but a thing of beauty, a collection of the most intense moments of human life preserved in the amber of time for us to experience as a gentle, soothing presence. As the light fades to a deep velvety black, you are cradled in the luxury of the 19th century, floating on a sea of silk and memory, moving toward a sleep that is as profound and undisturbed as the deepest vaults of the hotel cellar. The wind outside gives one final long sigh, a signal that the world is now truly at rest, and you may finally close your eyes and become part of the silent, storied history of this magnificent place. As the cold mountain air of Estes Park begins to settle around the white timber frames of the Stanley Hotel, imagine yourself standing on the wide, sprawling veranda, looking out toward the jagged peaks of the Rocky Mountains where the clouds hang like heavy, wet fleece against the granite cliffs. The story of this place begins not with a ghost, but with a breath of air, as freelance Oscar Stanley arrived in this high-altitude wilderness in 1903, seeking the healing properties of the dry, pine-scented wind to mend his tired lungs. Picture the steam rising from the radiator of a Stanley steamer as it winds slowly up the mountain trails, a rhythmic, hissing sound that blends with the rustle of the aspen leaves turning to gold in the autumn light. The hotel was built to be a beacon of civilization in the wild, a grand white palace of Georgian architecture with long, echoing corridors and a grand staircase that winds upward like a ribbon of dark mahogany. As you lie still, imagine the silence of fourth floor, where the air feels slightly thinner, and the sound of the modern world fall away entirely, replaced by the faint, rhythmic creaking of the building as it settles into the frozen earth. This is the place where Stephen King and his wife Tabitha checked in as the only guests on the final night of the season in 1974, finding themselves in room 2017, a space with yellow floral wallpaper, seemed to hold the echoes of every guest who had ever stayed before. Think of the long, empty dining room with all the chairs turned upside down on the tables, the white linens glowing like ghosts in the moonlight, and the absolute stillness of a kitchen that usually hums with the chaos of service. King walked those hallways alone that night, his footsteps muffled by the thick, patterned carpets, feeling the immense weight of the solitude and the way the shadows seemed to stretch and lean toward him from the corners of the ceiling. He dreamt that night of his young son running to the corridors, looking back over his shoulder with wide eyes, a dream so vivid it became the blueprint for a story that would haunt the world. But for you, these stories are just soft layers of history, wrapping around the room like a thick, insulating fog that keeps the cold and the noise at bay. F.O. Stanley himself is said to still wander the lobby, a gentle and meticulous host in a formal suit, checking the registers and ensuring that every guest is comfortable and at peace. You can almost hear the distant melodic tinkling of a piano coming from the music room, where Flora Stanley used to play for the guests, the notes drifting to the floorboards like a slow motion, waterfall of sound. There is no tension in this music, only a steady, repetitive loop of a Victorian lullaby that syncs with the slow rise and fall of your chest as you sink deeper into the softness of your pillow. The high mountain wind whistles softly through the window frames, a low and steady drone that sounds like a distant choir, singing the mountain to sleep. In room 418, the sounds of children playing are often reported, but here they are only a faint, rhythmic patter of tiny feet that sound like rain on a tin roof, a comforting and natural sound that signals safety and home. The Stanley Hotel is a place where time doesn't move forward in a straight line, but circles back on itself like the slow rotation of a ceiling fan in a darkened parlor. Every piece of furniture in a room is heavy and solid, grounded in the earth, providing a sense of permanent security as you drift further away from the waking world. The mountain peaks outside are silent sentinels, bathed in a pale blue light that filters through your eyelids, turning the world into a soft, hazy blur of peace and tranquility. You are safe in the heart of the Rockies, protected by the thick stone walls and the legacy of man who built this place as a sanctuary for the weary. The story of the hotel is a long, slow exhale, a transition from the labor of the day to the total surrender of the night. Imagine the grand staircase again, each step a year in the hotel's long life, leading you down into a valley of deep, dreamless rest. The air is cool, the blankets are heavy, and the spirit of the hotel is one of quiet watchfulness, ensuring that your sleep is as deep as the mountain canyons and as silent as the falling snow. As the light of the moon shifts across the floor, tracing the patterns of the wood grain, you feel your muscles go limp, your thoughts dissolving into mist that clings to the peaks of Long's Peak. There is nothing left to do but listen to the steady, hypnotic hum of the hotel's ancient heart, a sound that has continued for over a century and will continue long after the sun rises. Sleep is coming now, a slow and inevitable tide, pulling you into the quiet history of the Stanley, where every shadow is a friend and every whisper is a wish for your peaceful rest. As the moon hangs low over the Ozark Mountains and the thick evening fog rolls into the hollows of Eureka Springs, we find ourselves standing before the imposing limestone facade of Crescent Hotel, a building that sits like a silent crown atop the highest point in town. The air here is different, heavy with the scent of damp earth and old cedar, as we travel back in time to the 1930s, when a man named Norman Baker transformed this luxury resort into a place of false hope and flickering shadows. Imagine the steady, rhythmic clicking of his typewriter in a dark office, the sound echoing down the long, narrow corridors where the linoleum floors once shone with sterile, cold light. You are lying in a room where the walls are thick and white, providing a sense of absolute isolation from the world outside, while the wind outside sighs to the limestone arches like a long, slow breath being released into the night. Norman Baker wore a purple tie and a white suit, pacing the halls with a charismatic energy that has since settled into a quiet, lingering hum that vibrates in the very foundation of the building. As you settle deeper into your pillow, think of the basement, where the air is naturally cool and the silence is so profound it feels like a soft weight pressing against your chest. This was once the site of the morgue, a place of stone tables and frosted glass, where the light now filters into small, high windows in a pale, silvery glow. There is no movement here now, only the steady, hypnotic dripping of a distant tap, a sound that counts the seconds and draws you further into a state of total relaxation. The stories of the Crescent are not sharp or startling. They're like the slow movement of shadows across a polished wooden floor, a gradual shift from one state of being to another. You can almost hear the faint, muffled sound of a nurse's rubber-soled shoes moving down the hallway, a soft squeak and a rhythmic thud that acts as a heartbeat for the building, guiding your own breathing into a slow and steady pace. The medical history of this place is a tapestry of documented accounts, written in old ledger books with yellowed pages that crinkle softly when turned, a sound like dry leaves skittering across a porch. Each name in those logs is a quiet echo, a reminder of the thousands of people who sought rest and healing within these walls, leaving behind a peaceful, static energy that now blankets the entire hotel. The limestone itself is a porous stone, believed by many to hold on to the sounds and sights of the past like a giant recording, playing them back in the quietest hours of the night as a low, ambient drone. You are floating on this drone, a sea of white noise that drowns out the worries of the modern day, replacing them with the timeless, unhurried atmosphere of a mountain retreat. The grand windows of the dining room look out over the valley, where the lights of the town look like fallen stars caught in the trees, twinkling slowly and then fading into the mist. Inside, the grand staircase spiraling up to the center of the hotel acts as a giant stone chimney, drawing the cool night air upward and circulating a gentle, refreshing breeze that brushes against your skin like a silk thread. Every creak of the floorboards above is a familiar, comforting sound, the house settling into its bones for another century of watchful silence. There's a specific room, number 218, where a stonemason from the original construction is said to linger, not as a ghost of fear, but as a guardian of the craft. His presence felt as a sudden, cooling sensation that helps to lower your body temperature and prepare you for sleep. The history of Norman Baker's hospital is now just a collection of stories kept in the hotel archives, a distant memory that has been softened by time and the constant, healing presence of the mountain forest. As you drift closer to the edge of consciousness, the details of the past begin to blur, the purple suits and the medical charts dissolving into a hazy, violet-tinted dreamscape. The hotel is a fortress of solitude, a place where the weight of the Ozarks keeps the world still, and the history of the building serves as a thick, protective layer between you and the noise of life. The basement morgue is now just a quiet room of stone. The fraudulent cures are long forgotten, and all that remains is the deep, structural piece of a building that has seen everything and survived it all. You are sinking now, past the layers of limestone and the echoes of the 1930s, down into a deep well of restorative rest, where the air is always cool and the silence is absolute. The moon continues its slow arc over Crescent's turrets, casting long, protective shadows that tuck you in, ensuring that your sleep is as enduring and steady as the mountain itself. The rhythmic hum of the hotel's ancient pipes and the distant rustle of the forest are the last things you hear, a natural symphony that signals the total surrender of the senses to the night. As the moon hangs low over the quiet streets of old Chicago and the fog rolls in from the Atlantic coast, we find ourselves descending the hidden stone steps of a grand hotel into the secret world of the 1920s, a time when the air was thick with the scent of forbidden gin and the heavy, sweet smoke of jazz-age cigarettes. Imagine the feeling of cold, damp limestone against your palm as you run your hand along a secret passage tucked behind a heavy velvet curtain, a narrow corridor that leads away from the prying eyes of the law and into a subterranean world of flickering shadows and low-frequency hums. This was the era of the Prohibition, a decade of frantic energy and hidden lives, where the basement of America's most prestigious hotels were transformed into labyrinthine speakeasies with thick oak doors and brass-slotted peepholes. As you lie there, feel the weight of the city above you slowly fading away, replaced by the cool, subterranean stillness of these forgotten bars where the history of 1,000 secret toasts is etched into the very masonry. The silence of the night is now a canvas for the most delicate of sounds, the faint, rhythmic scratching of a needle on a gramophone in a room that hasn't seen a guest in 90 years, playing a melody so soft and slow it sounds like the breathing of the building itself. You can hear the distant, muffled echo of a trumpet, a single golden note that hangs in the air like a dust mote in a sunbeam, vibrating at a frequency that lulls your mind into a state of total surrender. These basement bars were places of high-stakes dealings and tragic ends, where the clinking of silver coins and the rustle of the legal ledgers created a psychic residue that still moves through the ventilation shafts like a cooling breeze. Imagine the footsteps of a long-gone night manager, a steady, hypnotic thud-thud-thud against the concrete floor, walking a rhythmic beat that matches the slow, calming pace of your own heart as it settles into the rhythm of sleep. There is no urgency in these phantom sounds, only the repetitive, circular nature of a memory that has found a permanent home in the architecture, a gentle loop that provides predictable and soothing background for your rest. The air in these hidden rooms is perfectly still, undisturbed by the winds of the surface world, carrying only the faint, comforting aroma of old cedarwood and the metallic tang of copper pipes. You are drifting now, floating down a long, dimly lit hallway where the light from a single amber bulb casts long, protective shadows that wrap around like a cocoon of soft wool. The tragedy of the past has been softened by the passage of a century, turned into a shimmering, peaceful mist that coats the brass railings and the leather stools of the empty bar. Think of the way a piano sounds when played from 3 floors away. The high notes lost to the thickness of the floorboards, and only the deep, resonant bass remaining, a low-frequency vibration that feels like a heavy blanket being tucked around your shoulders. This is a legacy of the jazz age and the grand hotels. Not a roar, but a whisper, a collection of soft echoes that remind us of the continuity of time and the safety of the present moment. The secret passages that once hummed with the nervous energy of illegal dealings are now silent tunnels of peace. Corridors of shadow that guide your consciousness away from the noise of the day and toward the vast, dark ocean of the night. Every creak of a copper pipe and every distant moan of the building's old boiler is a familiar part of this subterranean lullaby, a mechanical song that has been playing since the days of the great Gatsby. You can almost see the ghosts of the era, not as frightening spirits, but as elegant, translucent figures in tuxedos and flapper dresses, moving in a slow-motion dance that is as rhythmic and calming as the swaying of wheat in a field. They are the keepers of the hotel's secrets, ensuring that the stillness of the basement remains undisturbed and that every guest above can sleep in the knowledge that the past is well guarded and at peace. As you sink deeper into the layers of your mattress, imagine the heavy, iron door of the speakeasy swinging shut with a soft, final thud, sealing out the world and leaving you in a sanctuary of absolute quiet. The music fades to a single, pulsing rhythm. The footsteps grow distant and then vanish into the velvet dark, and you are left with nothing but the cool, refreshing silence of the deep earth. The history of the 1920s is a long, winding story that has finally reached its quietest chapter, a chapter of rest and restoration where the shadows are kind and the echoes are a song for the weary. You are safe in the belly of the Grand Hotel, protected by decades of stone and memory, as the world above continues its slow turn toward the morning while you stay here, anchored in the perfect, timeless peace of the secret past. In the soft stillness of the New Hampshire night, we find ourselves at the foot of the White Mountains, where the Omni Mount Washington Resort stands as a grand, sprawling palace of white timber and red-tiled roofs, its long porches catching the silver light of the moon that has watched over these valleys for centuries. As you settle into profound softness of your bed, imagine the long, carpeted hallways of the third floor, where the air is cool and smells of faint mountain pine and the delicate, powdery scent of vintage rosewater. Here, the legend of the Lady in White is not a tale of terror, but a lingering, graceful presence that drifts through the corridor like a soft morning mist. Her name was Carolyn Stickney, a woman of immense wealth and quiet elegance, who reigned over this grand hotel in the early 20th century, and whose story has been meticulously preserved in the yellowed archives of historical newspapers and guest registries. Imagine the rhythmic, soothing sound of a silk gown brushing against the thick, ornate carpets, a sound like a gentle sigh that repeats with every slow and deliberate step she takes through the halls she once called home. You are lying in the very heart of this history, wrapped in linens that feel as crisp and cool as a mountain spring, while the weight of the dark furniture around you provides a sense of absolute permanence and safety. The archetype of the jilted bride, or the eternal widow, is a common thread that runs through the tapestry of American folklore, but here it is grounded in the reality of a woman who simply loved her sanctuary too much to ever truly leave it. Picture her sitting at the edge of the four-poster bed in room 314, the same mahogany bed that she brought with her from her private estate, its heavy posts reaching toward the high ceiling like the trunks of ancient oaks. The silence in this room is deep and multi-layered, broken only by the steady, hypnotic ticking of a small brass clock on the mantel and the distant, muffled sound of the wind moving to the notches of the mountainside. Historical records tell us of her grand parties and her deep devotion to the hotel's construction, and as you drift toward sleep, you can almost feel that sense of careful, loving stewardship manifesting as a protective aura around your own space. There's a repetitive, calming quality to the legend, the way she is said to appear on the balcony at sunset or brush her hair in the mirror of the grand suite, movements that are as rhythmic and predictable as the tide or the changing of the seasons. These are not movements of unrest, but of a peaceful routine that has been sanctified by time, a domestic ritual that hums at a low frequency, lulling the modern traveler into a state of deep, restorative relaxation. Think of the newspaper clippings from the 1920s that describe the princess of Mount Washington, her life a series of quiet, elegant moments that left a psychic footprint on the stone and wood of the resort. You are now stepping into that footprint, allowing the slow pace of her era to dictate the rhythm of your own breathing, feeling your heart rate slow to match the steady, unhurried pulse of the grand old building. The mountains outside are vast and silent, their granite peaks holding back the noise of the world and creating a vacuum of peace where only the softest sound can survive. You might hear the faint musical chime of a crystal chandelier caught in a stray breeze, a delicate and shimmering sound that vibrates through the air and then fades into the velvet dark. This is the essence of the Lady in White archetype, a personification of the building's memory, a gentle guardian who ensures that the elegance of the Gilded Age remains, undisturbed by the passage of decades. As your eyes grow heavy, imagine the white lace curtains of the suite swaying slowly back and forth, a metronome of fabric that guides you further away from the waking world and into a dreamscape of silk and mountain air. The tragedy often associated with these stories is softened here by the documented reality of Carolyn's comfortable life, turning the haunting into a mere continuation of a long, peaceful residency. You are a guest in her home, and the hospitality of the past is reaching out to tuck you in, to smooth the edges of your thoughts, and provide a sanctuary where the only requirement is to let go and rest. The archive of the past is closed for the night, its pages still and silent, and you are floating on the final, lingering note of Victorian piano melody that echoes in the ballroom far below. Sinking deeper into the mattress, you feel the strength of the hotel's foundation, the centuries of stone and heartwood supporting you, as the figure in white fades into the soft, gray light of pre-dawn memory. Everything is quiet, everything is still, and you are perfectly safe in the care of history that values nothing more than a quiet, undisturbed night of sleep. In the velvet heart of Hollywood, where the neon lights of the boulevard fade into a soft purple haze, we find ourselves standing before the Spanish colonial towers of the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, a place where the air is heavy with the scent of jasmine and the lingering glamour of 1,000 premiere nights. As you sink into the cool, crisp sheets of your bed, imagine the long, dimly lit corridors of this Los Angeles landmark, where the polished saltillo tiles reflect the dim glow of wrought iron lanterns and the silence is as thick as a theater curtain before the show begins. This is a world of glitz and gloom, a sanctuary for the silver screen icons who sought refuge from the flashbulbs in the quiet corners of the Blossom Ballroom and the high-ceiling suites. The story of the Roosevelt is written in the reflection of its mirrors, specifically the tall, ornate glass that once hung in Suite 1229, where Marilyn Monroe would sit for hours staring at the dream of herself. Imagine the rhythmic, hypnotic sound of a silver hairbrush moving through platinum blonde hair, a soft swish-swish-swish that echoes through the decades and blends with the steady, distant hum of the city outside. You are lying in a space where time is liquid, flowing slowly like the golden honey of a California sunset, and the boundaries between the past and the present are as thin as a film reel. Marilyn's presence is said to be a shimmering warmth in the room, a soft, translucent light that appears in the silver backing of the mirrors, not as a ghost of sorrow, but as a guardian of beauty and eternal rest. Feel the weight of your limbs as you listen to the imagined sound of a distant, muffled jazz band playing a slow-tempo ballad from 1950, the trumpet notes stretched thin and long like shadows on the pavement. In another part of the hotel on the 9th floor, the spirit of Montgomery Clift is said to pace the hallway outside room 928, his footsteps alight, rhythmic patter against the patterned carpet as he memorizes his lines for a movie that has long since been released. There is a soothing predictability to these movements, a circular pattern of rehearsal and reflection that creates a protective barrier around the hotel, sealing you inside a capsule of quiet history. Think of the way the light hits the palm fronds in the courtyard, casting long, feathery patterns against the stucco walls that move with the slow, rhythmic breeze of the Pacific Ocean. The mirrors of the Roosevelt are like deep, still pools of water, holding onto the images of the stars who once gazed into them and releasing the energy as a calming, ambient glow that fills the room as the lights go out. You are safe in the luxury of this old-world architecture, protected by the same walls that shielded the legends of the Golden Age from the noise of the world. The historical documentation of these sightings is like a collection of bedtime stories, told in whispers by night porters and recorded in dusty logs that sleep in the hotel's basement archives. As you drift further toward the horizon of sleep, imagine the lobby's grand fountain, its water trickling over the stone in a constant, melodic stream that drowns out the rustle of your thoughts and replaces them with a singular, liquid focus. The glitz of Hollywood has softened into a warm amber patina, and the gloom is nothing more than the comfortable darkness of a private screening room where the movie has finally ended. You can almost feel the presence of a velvet rope being pulled across the entrance of your mind, closing the doors of the day's worries and inviting you into the exclusive after-party of dreams. The reflection in the mirror of your mind is clear and calm, showing only a vast expanse of stars over the Hollywood hills and the silhouette of the hotel's neon sign, which flickers with a steady, rhythmic pulse that guides your breathing into a deep and natural state of relaxation. Each floor of the Roosevelt is a layer of soft, historical memory, and you are descending slowly through them, passing the suites of the stars and the ballrooms of the elite, until you reach the bedrock of a deep and restorative sleep. The ghosts of the Roosevelt are merely the keepers of the hotel's soul, ensuring that the glamour remains while the chaos fades away, leaving you in a state of perfect, undisturbed tranquility. The wind sighs to the canyon of the street below, a sound as soft as a silk scarf being draped over a lamp, and the world is finally completely quiet. You are tucked into the history of Hollywood, a star in your own silent film of rest, as the night moves forward without you and the mirrors hold only the peace of the empty room. In the deep stillness of a humid southern night, where the scent of blooming jasmine and damp earth hangs heavy in the air, we find ourselves standing before the towering columns of Grand Hotel that once stood as a silent witness to the tides of the American Civil War. Imagine the rhythmic chirping of the cicadas in the distance, creating a steady wall of natural white noise that pulses like the heartbeat of the land as you settle into the profound softness of your mattress and feel the weight of the day lifting away from your body. During the 1860s, these halls of luxury were stripped of their fine linens and crystal decanters to be transformed into makeshift infirmaries, where the light of flickering lanterns cast long dancing shadows against the high ceilings, and the sound of soldiers' boots echoed on the wooden floorboards. As you lie there, imagine the transition of these spaces from sites of frantic care back into sanctuaries of absolute opulence, where the scars of the past have been smoothed over by layers of thick wallpaper and the silent application of polished beeswax. The air in these historic suites is cool and stationary, carrying the faint comforting aroma of aged cedar and old parchment, which speaks of a time when the world moved at the pace of a horse-drawn carriage. The soldier sightings reported in hotels like the Marshall House in Savannah or the Battle House in Mobile are often described as quiet, translucent figures standing at the foot of a bed or gazing out a tall window toward a horizon that is long since changed, but their presence is one of a lingering watchfulness rather than unrest. Picture a young sentry in a faded blue or gray coat standing perfectly still in the corner of a dimly lit hallway, his figure as stationary and reliable as a piece of antique furniture, providing a sense of historical continuity that anchors the building to the earth. There is a hypnotic quality to the stories of these phantom guardians who seem to be caught in a loop of duty and service their repetitive movements, acting as a rhythmic lullaby that guides your mind away from the complexities of the modern world. You can hear the distant muffled sound of a bugle call carried on the wind, but it is so soft and far away that it sounds like the humming of the building's own pipes or the rustle of the oak trees in the courtyard. The floorboards beneath the thick floral carpets occasionally let out a slow, resonant creak, as if the hotel is stretching its bones and settling into a deeper state of repose for the night. This is the weight of history acting as protective barrier around your room, creating a fortress of solitude where the only task is to breathe in the cool night air and allow your thoughts to dissolve into the shadows. The transition from a place of healing to a place of rest is complete, and you are now the beneficiary of that long journey, feeling the immense structural strength of the brick and mortar supporting you. Imagine the grand staircase with its heavy mahogany banister worn smooth by the hands of thousands of guests and soldiers, alike a physical record of the passage of time that leads you downward into the quietest levels of consciousness. The moonlight filters through the heavy velvet curtains in pale silvery streaks, illuminating the dust motes that dance in the air with slow and aimless grace. Each breath you take is synchronized with the slow swaying of the Spanish moss outside the window, a natural metronome that counts the seconds of a peaceful and undisturbed night. The stories of the soldiers are like old photographs tucked away in a drawer, faded and soft around the edges, serving only to remind us of the enduring nature of the human spirit and the sanctuary of the home. You are safe in the heart of the South, wrapped in the luxury of the present and the quiet dignity of the past, as the world outside continues its slow rotation, and the stars watch over the silent chimneys and the wide sleeping porches. The memories of the 1860s have become a shimmering mist that blankets the hotel, providing a soft focus for your dreams and a rhythmic foundation for your sleep. There is no more movement in the halls, only the steady cooling of the stone and the deep silence of the forest that surrounds the property. You are sinking now past the layers of history and into the velvet dark, where the only sound is the rhythmic sigh of the wind and the steady pulse of your own heart. Everything is quiet, everything is still, and the Grand Hotel remains a silent sentinel of peace in the middle of the night. In the quiet shadows of the city, where the great stone hotels rise like ancient monuments against the midnight sky, we turn our thoughts to the mystery of the 13th floor space, often bypassed by the mechanical hum of the elevator and left to the silent keeping of the past. As you settle into the soft embrace of your pillows, imagine the long vertical climb of the elevator car, a steady rhythmic vibration that pulses through the floor as you ascend toward the clouds, leaving the noise of the streets far below. Throughout the history of American architecture, the fear of the number 13 led many builders to skip the designation entirely, yet the physical space remains a silent layer of brick and mortar tucked between the 12th and 14th levels. Imagine a hallway where the lights are perpetually dimmed and the air is perfectly still, holding the faint scent of old dust and cold stone, like a room that has been sealed in a glass jar for a century. In some of these grand hotels, history was marked by sudden accidents or the flickering orange glow of a localized fire that left a mark on the floorboards long after the smoke had cleared and the sirens had faded into the distance. These events are not loud or frightening now, but are merely part of the heavy layer of memory that coats the building, providing a thick insulation against the outside world. You can hear the distant rhythmic clanking of the steam pipes accompanying mechanical heartbeat that echoes through the walls and reminds you that the building is a living, breathing entity that protects those within its shell. The stories of cursed floors are often born from a single moment of tragedy, a dropped candle or a forgotten stove that turned a wing of the hotel into a quiet sanctuary for shadows. Picture a heavy oak door at the end of a long corridor with a brass number that has been polished so many times have begun to fade into the grain of the wood. Behind these doors, the air is cool, and the silence is absolute, acting as a vacuum for any stress or tension you might be carrying from your waking life. As you drift further into relaxation, imagine the slow, deliberate movements of the night watchman as he walks the perimeter of these closed floors as footsteps, creating a steady hypnotic thud against the carpet that sounds like the ticking of a giant clock. There is a specific kind of peace found in the places the public no longer visits, a profound stillness that allows the architecture to rest and breathe without the constant movement of guests. You are floating on this stillness, now feeling your limbs grow heavy and warm, as if you were draped in a thick velvet curtain from a grand ballroom. The accidents of the past have been processed by time and turned into soft folklore collection of whispers that add character to the hotel without disturbing the tranquility of the night. Think of the way a fire leaves a permanent warmth in the stone long after the flames are gone, a gentle heat that radiates through the walls and provides a cozy cocoon for your sleep. The crimes of the old world are now just faded headlines in yellowed newspapers locked away in the basement archives, serving as a foundation for the quiet safety you feel in this moment. Every creak of the floor above you and every moan of the wind against the high-rise windows is a signal that you are tucked away in a fortress of history where the only requirement is to let go and surrender to the night. The 13th floor is not a place of fear, but a place of profound rest, a gap in the timeline of the building where the past and the present meet in a silent dance. You are moving through this space now, guided by the steady pulse of the building's heart, sinking deeper into the layers of the mattress as the world outside dissolves into a blur of dark blue and silver. The moonlight catches the edge of a brass keyhole on a closed door, reflecting a tiny pinprick of light that serves as a beacon for your dreams. There is no movement. Hear only the slow settling of the foundations and the rhythmic expansion and contraction of the building as it breathes the cool night air. You are safe, you are protected, and you are part of the long, silent story of the hotel's endurance. The ghosts of these closed floors are merely the architects of the building's peace, ensuring that the silence remains unbroken and that every guest in the rooms below can find the deep restorative sleep they seek. As the hours move toward the dawn, the mysteries of the 13th floor become a soft gray mist that wraps around your mind, pulling you into a dreamless state of total calm. The wind gives one final low whistle through the service shaft, a sound as soothing as a lullaby, and then there is only the absolute perfect silence of the night. In the quiet solitude of a modern-day laboratory tucked within the limestone walls of an ancient hotel, we find ourselves surrounded by the soft rhythmic blinking of tiny emerald lights and the low, steady hum of sensitive electronic equipment that breathes in the silent frequencies of the night. As you settle into profound comfort of your bed, feel the weight of your body becoming one with the mattress, while the steady pulse of the digital age blends seamlessly with the ancient echoes of the architecture. Over the last decade, the search for the unknown has transitioned from whispered ghost stories to a methodical scientific pursuit using electromagnetic field meters that sit silently on mahogany side tables, their needles barely moving as they monitor the invisible currents that flow through the air like deep underwater rivers. Imagine the soft green glow of a thermal imaging camera as it pans slowly across a darkened ballroom, catching the cooling signatures of the marble pillars and the heavy velvet drapes that hang like sleeping giants in the shadows. The air in these historic locations is thick with a quiet electricity, a subtle vibration that you can feel as a gentle tingling against your skin as you drift further away from the waking world. There's a hypnotic quality to the data being gathered, the repetitive scrolling of temperature logs, and the rhythmic peaks of sound waves recorded on high-frequency devices that capture the silence between the heartbeats of the house. You are lying in a sanctuary of observation where every sound is accounted for and every shadow is measured, providing a sense of absolute order and safety that allows your mind to let go of any lingering tension. Think of the specialized microphones that listen to the infrasound of the building, a frequency so low it is felt rather than heard, acting as a deep resonant bass note that vibrates through your bones and pulls you into a state of total relaxation. These modern tools do not disrupt the peace of the hotel, but rather document the enduring presence of its history, turning the mystery into a steady stream of predictable patterns. You can hear the distant muffled click of a camera shutter in a room far down the hall, a sound that is as regular and soothing as the ticking of a grandfather clock in a dusty library. The anomalies recorded over the last 10 years are like soft digital footprints in the sand, a series of cold spots that drift slowly across a room, like a cloud passing over the sun, or a sudden spike in energy that feels like a warm breeze in a closed corridor. This technology acts as a bridge between the physical world and the intangible past, creating a safe and controlled environment where you are free to explore the depths of your own dreams. The electromagnetic fields of the building are like a soft, invisible blanket that wraps around you, providing a protective shield against the noise and chaos of the modern city outside. As you sink deeper into the layers of your quilt, imagine the blue light of a monitor fading into a deep violet as the sensors settle into a baseline of perfect stillness. There is no movement in the data. Now only the flat, steady line of a building at rest, a mechanical confirmation that everything is as it should be. The thermal signatures of the rooms have all reached a uniform, cool temperature, reflecting the natural peace of the night and the steady descent of the sun. You are floating on a sea of white noise generated by the very equipment meant to find the ghosts of the past, but finding instead only the profound and restorative silence of a well-guarded history. The modern world, with its gadgets and meters, has merely confirmed what the heart has always known, that these grand hotels are vessels of a timeless calm. Every blinking light on an EMF meter is a tiny beacon of safety, a small star in the dark of your room, that reminds you that you are being watched over by both the spirits of the past and the science of the present. The hum of the equipment becomes a lullaby, a repetitive and monotonous drone that shuts down the analytical parts of your brain and invites the creative flow of sleep to take over. You are part of a documented piece, a recorded tranquility that has been measured and verified by 1,000 sensors. The wind outside whispers through the radio antennas on the roof a long and hollow sound that signals the beginning of the deepest part of the night. Everything is quiet, everything is monitored, and you are perfectly secure in the knowledge that the world is in balance. The logs are closed, the cameras are set, and the data is streaming in a slow and endless loop that guides you toward the final horizon of consciousness. Sleep is a frequency. You are now tuning into a steady and unbreakable wave that carries you away from the light and into the soft, dark velvet of the night. In the quietest hour of the night, when the grand lobby is bathed in the soft blue glow of the moonlight, we find ourselves sitting with the keepers of the keys, the long-term employees who have walked these corridors for more than 30 years, and whose memories are etched into the very grain of the oak paneling. Imagine the steady rhythmic sound of a silver-haired concierge polishing a brass bell with a soft flannel cloth, a repetitive and hypnotic movement that have been performed 10,000 times in the same quiet corner. As you settle into your blankets, feel the immense wisdom and calm of these dedicated souls who have seen the seasons change and the guests come and go while they remain as steady as the stone foundations. They speak in low, melodic whispers about the things they have seen when the world is asleep, the doors that open of their own accord with slow and deliberate creak, and the phantom scent of cherry pipe tobacco that wafts through a room that has been smoke-free for decades. These testimonies are not stories of fear, but a comfortable and familiar companionship with the past, a quiet understanding that the building has a life of its own that requires a gentle hand to maintain. Think of the head housekeeper who has straightened the same set of heavy velvet curtains every morning since 1995, her footsteps alight in predictable rhythm against the patterned carpet as she moves from room to room. She tells of the time she felt a soft hand on her shoulder in an empty suite of touches, light as a falling leaf, or the sound of a distant muffled laugh coming from a ballroom that has been locked for the night. These accounts are documented in the margins of old logbooks and shared over cups of lukewarm coffee in the staff break room, creating a hidden history of the hotel that the public rarely sees. You are floating on the surface of these memories, feeling the safety of being in a place that is so thoroughly known and cared for by people who treat every shadow with respect and every echo with a nod of recognition. Imagine the night porter who has operated the manual elevator for 3 decades, feeling the slight shift in weight as a spectral guest joins him for a ride to the 4th floor silent presence that smells of old books and rain. The elevator cable hums a steady low-frequency note as it moves through the shaft of sound that acts as a physical anchor for your mind, pulling you deeper into a state of total relaxation. These employees describe the unexplainable as a series of rhythmic patterns of light that flickers in 3 short bursts, or a cold spot that moves through the kitchen at precisely 3 in the morning like a clockwork ghost. There's a profound sense of order in these testimonies, a belief that everything in a hotel has its place, and its time, including the lingering energy of those who lived there long ago. As you drift further towards sleep, imagine the vast collection of keys hanging in the back office, each one worn smooth by the grip of hands that have long since retired, but whose care still resonates in the polished surfaces of the furniture. The air is cool and still carrying the faint metallic tang of old keys, an accompanying smell of floor wax scent that signifies a job well done and a building at rest. You are being watched over by the collective memory of 30 years of service, a protective layer of human dedication that ensures your sleep is undisturbed and your dreams are peaceful. The wind outside sighs against the heavy stone walls, but inside the silence is absolute and organized, a sanctuary built on the reliability of the staff who have seen it all. Each story shared by the concierge is a soft stone added to the wall of your security, creating a barrier between you and the noise of the outside world. You can almost hear the soft click of the night manager's pen as he signs off on the final report of the evening, a sound that signals the end of the day's labor and the beginning of the night's restoration. The hotel is a vessel of continuity, and you are a passenger on a long, slow journey through the decades, feeling the steady pulse of the building's history beneath your head. Sinking deeper into the mattress, you let go of the need to understand the unexplainable and simply accept it as a soft background hum, a natural part of the atmosphere of a grand historic hotel. The ghosts of the employees past and present are moving through the halls in a silent, synchronized dance, ensuring the lights are low and the blankets are tucked and the world is finally completely and utterly still. You are safe in the hands of the experts, the guardians of the grand tradition of hospitality, as you surrender to the night, and the stories fade into a single golden thread of sleep. In the deep stillness of the midnight hour, we find ourselves contemplating the ancient and silent bones of the Grand Hotel, exploring the quiet philosophy of the stone tape theory, which suggests that the very minerals of the earth and the heartwood of forest can act as a natural phonograph, recording the intense emotions and events of the past within their molecular structure. As you settle into profound and heavy warmth of your bed, imagine the limestone blocks and the granite foundations of this building as vast silent archives that have been soaking up the atmosphere of human life for over a century, like a sponge absorbing the mist of a mountain morning. The air in your room is perfectly still and cool, carrying a faint scent of aged stone and dry timber, a smell that speaks of permanence and the slow passage of geological time. There is a hypnotic quality to the idea that the walls around you are not just dividers of space, but are living libraries of energy, holding on to the rhythmic vibrations of laughter and the heavy low-frequency echoes of sorrow. Think of the way a quartz crystal can hold an electrical charge, and then imagine the massive veins of crystal within the mountain rock upon which this hotel is built, acting as a giant subterranean hard drive that stores the memories of the Gilded Age. As you drift further into relaxation, feel the steady and unmoving strength of the floor beneath you, a solid surface that has felt the weight of 1,000,000 footsteps and has recorded the unique cadence of every stride. The stone tape theory posits that under certain conditions of humidity and atmospheric pressure, the building plays back these recordings as a series of soft repetitive loops, creating the phantom sound of a distant party or the muffled thud of a closing door that hasn't existed for 80 years. You can hear the low, steady hum of the building's own resonance, a sound that is too deep for the ears, but is felt in the chest as a rhythmic pulsing that synchronizes with your own slow and steady breathing. These recordings are not ghosts in the traditional sense, but are merely the acoustic shadows of history, moving through the crystalline structure of the masonry, like a light through a prism. Imagine the heavy mahogany beams in the ceiling having absorbed the sound of a grand piano played in 1912, and slowly releasing that vibration back into the room as a soothing, almost imperceptible melody that lulls the mind into a state of total surrender. There is no urgency in these recordings, only the circular and predictable nature of a memory that has become part of the architecture itself. You are lying in a sanctuary of recorded peace wrapped in the insulation of decades of silent observation, where the walls serve as a protective barrier against the chaotic frequencies of the modern world. The minerals in the stone are steady and reliable, providing a grounded energy that pulls your consciousness down into the dark, fertile soil of deep sleep. Think of the way water leaves a mark on a canyon wall over thousands of years, and realize that human presence leaves a similar mark on the limestone and the brick, creating a rich tapestry of history that you are currently resting within. The flickering of the shadows on the wall is like the play of an old film reel, soft and grainy, and infinitely calming, as it tells a story of continuity and the endurance of matter. Every creak of the wood as it expands in the night airs a mechanical release of energy, a tiny playback of a historical moment that adds to the atmospheric density of the room. You are floating on a sea of ancient vibrations, feeling your muscles go limp as you surrender to the magnetic pull of the earth's memory. The stone does not judge and the wood does not forget. They simply hold the space for you to exist in a state of perfect and undisturbed tranquility. The wind outside brushes against the rough exterior of the hotel, but inside, the recordings are of a different nature, a quiet hum of 1,000 peaceful nights that have come before this one. You are safe in the heart of the archive, protected by the literal weight of the past and the scientific stability of the structure. The theory of the stone tape is a lullaby of physics, a reminder that nothing is ever truly lost, but is simply transformed into a part of the environment. As your eyes grow heavy and the world becomes a soft blur of gray and silver, imagine the molecules of stone settling into their lowest energy state, mimicking the total relaxation of your own body. There's a profound silence in the deep layers of the masonry of silence that is contagious and overwhelming, guiding you toward a sleep that is as solid and enduring as the hotel itself. The past is a soft echo, the present is a warm bed, and the future is a horizon of dreamless rest that you are now crossing with every slow and deliberate breath. The recordings of the walls are fading into a single steady tone, a white noise of history that blankets your thoughts and leaves you in a state of absolute and blissful quiet. You are part of the stone, now you are part of the story, and the night is long and full of peace. In the quiet hum of the modern world, as you lie nestled in the sanctuary of your room, imagine the grand Astoria hotels of America shifting their heavy stone shoulders, moving from a past where secrets were kept in the dark to a present where their legendary spirits are celebrated as cherished members of the establishment. The air is cool and perfectly still, carrying the faint, comforting scent of lavender and old leather, while the rhythmic ticking of clock in the hallway serves as a steady metronome for your thoughts. In decades past, the reports of phantom footsteps or a door opening on its own were hushed whispers discussed only by the night staff in the shadows of the basement. But today, these hauntings have become the heart of an enchantment economy, drawing international history buffs and curious travelers into their ornate lobbies. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, feel the weight of the blankets pressing softly against you, just as the history of these buildings presses against the present, creating a rich, multi-layered atmosphere that is as safe as it is intriguing. The management of a haunted reputation is now a delicate and graceful dance, a ritual of storytelling where the hotel staff acts as the keepers of a sacred narrative, documenting guest experiences in leather-bound journals and sharing them with a sense of pride and hospitality. You can hear the distant, muffled sound of a guided tour moving through the ballroom 3 floors below. The guides voice a low, melodic drone that describes the gilded age balls and the tragic romances that left behind a shimmering psychic residue. These stories are no longer hidden away like dusty artifacts. They are woven into the very fabric of the hotel's brand, celebrated with spirited cocktails at the bar and special midnight packages that invite you to explore the silence of the corridors. There's a profound sense of continuity in this, a feeling that the past is not a thing to be feared but a companion to be respected, providing a steady and unchanging foundation for your rest. Imagine the marketing director of a grand hotel in Savannah or New Orleans carefully archiving user-generated content, the grainy photos of orbs and the recordings of EVP whispers, turning the unexplainable into a documented legacy that bridges the gap between the centuries. This transparency creates a unique kind of trust, a feeling that you are being invited into a space where every shadow has a name and every echo is part of grander history. As your eyes grow heavy, think of the international travelers who cross oceans just to sit in a lobby where a lady in black is said to wait for a lost lover, their presence adding a global layer of quiet reverence to the building's atmosphere. The hotel is no longer just a place to sleep. It is a living museum of human emotion, a sanctuary where the hidden secrets of the past have been transformed into major draws of the modern day. You are floating on this sea of shared stories, feeling the strength of the community that has grown around these legends, a community that values the slow, the old, and the mysterious. The wind outside sighs to the ancient oak trees, a long and peaceful sound that signals the total surrender of the world to the night. and you are tucked deep within the protective shell of a building that knows its own worth. The management of these spirits is a labor of love, a commitment to preserving the authenticity of the experience, while ensuring that every guest feels a profound peace of a well-guarded home. Every creak of the floorboards is a familiar note in a song that has been playing for 100 years, a song that tells you that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Sinking deeper into the mattress, you let go of the curiosity and the questions, allowing the weight of the documented past to anchor you in a deep and restorative sleep. The ghosts are part of the service. The history is the decor, and the silence is the ultimate luxury that surrounds you now, a thick and velvety dark that holds no surprises, only the steady and predictable rhythm of the night. You are safe, you are held, and you are part of the enduring legacy of the American Grand Hotel. As the world outside fades to a whisper and the dreams of the past become your own. In the quiet solitude of the archives, where the air is cool and smells of dry ink and ancient vellum, we find ourselves surrounded by the physical proof of the past, a vast collection of handwritten ledgers and brittle police reports that document the unexplainable with the cold precision of a court stenographer. As you settle into profound and heavy warmth of your bed, imagine the rhythmic sound of a heavy steel filing cabinet being opened with a low metallic slide, and the soft, dry crinkle of yellow paper as a researcher turns the pages of a guest log from 1892. These documents are the anchor of our stories, providing a tangible bridge between the flickering shadows of folklore and the solid reality of historical record. Each entry in the hotel registry is a tiny window into a life lived long ago, written in the elegant looping curse of a fountain pen that has since run dry, but whose ink remains as a permanent shadow on the page. You are lying in a sanctuary of facts where the weight of the evidence acts as a protective blanket, pulling your consciousness down into a state of total security and calm. Think of the official police reports filed after a sudden tragedy in a grand ballroom, where the officer's notes describe the atmospheric disturbances and the strange behavior of the furniture, with a flat, emotionless tone that makes the impossible feel like a routine occurrence. There is a hypnotic quality to these lists of names, and dates a repetitive sequence of arrivals and departures that flows like a slow-moving river to the heart of the building. You can hear the distant muffled sound of a typewriter in a basement office, its steady rhythmic clacking of mechanical heartbeat that measures the passage of time and records the heartbeat of the hotel. These records tell of a chambermaid in 1905 who refused to enter room 402 of her statement, signed with a shaky hand and witnessed by the night manager in a ledger that is now locked in a climate control vault. There is no urgency in these documents, only the quiet persistence of the truth waiting to be read in the silent hours of the night, when the modern world has faded to a whisper. As you drift further into relaxation, imagine the vast rows of shelves stretching into the darkness, each box holding 1,000 stories of unexplained footsteps and phantom music, all recorded with the same meticulous care as a bank statement or property deed. This paper trail is a testament to the endurance of the human experience, a reminder that we leave a mark on the world that can be measured and filed away for the future. The ink on the pages is a deep obsidian black, reflecting the velvet darkness of your room, and the silver moonlight that filters through the heavy curtains. You are safe in the knowledge that everything has been recorded, and everything has its place in the grand narrative of the hotel's life. The names of the guests from a century ago are like a soft rhythmic chant, a litany of souls who once slept in the same bed and breathed the same cool night air. The archive is a place of profound peace, where the chaos of the past has been organized and bound into leather covers, providing a sense of structural order that allows your mind to surrender to the night. Think of the way a heavy book feels in your hands, its weight a comforting presence that speaks of authority and permanence, as you feel your own limbs grow heavy and warm with the onset of sleep. The paper trail is a path through the forest of memory, leading you away from the light of the day and into the deep restorative shadows of the long night. Every signature in the guest log is a soft echo of a life lived, and every report in the file is a guardian of the hotel's mystery, ensuring that the past is never truly forgotten, but is always kept in a state of quiet repose. You are sinking now past the layers of ink and parchment into a dreamless state of total tranquility, where the only sounds are the rhythmic sigh of the wind and the steady pulse of the building's ancient heart. Everything is documented, everything is silent, and you are perfectly secure in the heart of the history that surrounds you. In the final hours of our journey, as the moon reaches its highest point over the silent spires of the American landscape, we find ourselves reflecting on the enduring obsession with the intersection of luxury history and the supernatural fascination that pulls at the collective heart of the nation like the steady rhythmic tide of the Atlantic Ocean against a rocky shore. As you settle into the absolute softness of your pillows, feel the weight of the centuries pressing down like a heavy velvet quilt, providing a sense of warmth and permanence that shields you from the frantic pace of the modern world. American culture is built upon a longing for continuity, for a connection to a past that is both opulent and mysterious, and there is no place where this connection is more tangible than the grand halls of a historic hotel, where the glitter of a chandelier meets the deep shadows of an untold story. Imagine the hypnotic swaying of a crystal pendant in a soft, draughtless light fracturing into 1,000 tiny diamonds that dance across the dark with paneling in a slow and predictable pattern that lulls your eyes into a state of total rest. This obsession is not rooted in fear, but in a deep-seated desire for sanctuary, for the idea that beauty and elegance do not simply vanish into the ether, but linger as a shimmering residue in the stone and the silk. You are lying in a space where the boundaries between then and now are dissolved into a peaceful gray mist, and the air is thick with the scent of old roses and cooling embers of scent that signifies the end of a long and successful era. Think of the way we gravitate toward these buildings because they offer a sense of grandeur that the digital world cannot replicate, a physical weight that anchors our souls to the earth and provides a steady foundation for our dreams. The supernatural is merely the final layer of this luxury, the ultimate amenity that suggests that life is too vibrant and too intense to be contained within the span of a single century. We are drawn to mystery because it implies that the rooms we sleep in are more than just four walls. They are vessels of memory and keepers of a timeless hospitality that continues to watch over us as we close our eyes. You can hear the distant, muffled sound of the wind moving through the valley, a low and steady drone that sounds like the collective breath of all the guests who have ever stayed within these walls of rhythmic and soothing song that guides your heart rate into a slow and steady beat. The history of the Grand Hotel is a long, slow exhale, a transition from the labor of the day to the total surrender of the night. And you are now part of that legacy, a quiet participant in a tradition of rest that spans generations. Imagine the long, empty corridors stretching out toward the horizon of your mind, their doors closed and their lights dimmed to a soft amber glow that invites a state of profound and restorative relaxation. There is a specific kind of peace found in the belief that we are never truly alone, that the elegance of the past remains as a gentle guardian, ensuring that our sleep is undisturbed and our sanctuary is preserved. The intersection of luxury and the supernatural is a place of absolute safety, a fortress of solitude, where the only requirement is to let go and allow the weight of the history to carry you into the deep, dark waters of the night. Every creak of the floor and every sigh of the building is a familiar part of this cultural lullaby, a reminder that you are tucked away in a place of enduring significance and quiet strength. The obsession remains because the story is never truly finished. It is a circular narrative that returns every night to the same point of peace and tranquility. You are sinking now past the layers of gold leaf and the echoes of the ballroom into a dreamless state of total calm, where the only sound is the rhythmic pulse of your own breathing and the steady beat of the hotel's ancient heart. The moon is fading, the stars are steady, and the world is finally completely and utterly still as you surrender to the lasting legacy of the Grand American Hotel and profound rest that it offers to the weary soul. Sleep is a luxury that you have earned, a gift from the past, and a promise of the tomorrow that remains far beyond the horizon of your dreams.